Hello and welcome back to English in Fluency. I'm Alex, and if you've ever felt like learning English is a huge mountain to climb, or maybe you think some people are just naturally gifted at languages while you struggle, then stop scrolling right now. I have to share a secret with you, and it's one that the truly fluent English speakers understand completely. Here's the hook: consistency. Showing up every single day, even just for a few minutes, consistently beats raw talent. That's not just a catchy phrase, it's the absolute truth. And today, we're going to prove it together. You're not just listening today. You are actively practicing and improving your English with a story designed specifically for B1 level learners. Your English genuinely improves when you practice daily. And our story today, about a young woman named Clara, is the perfect example. So, grab a warm drink, relax, and let's dive into a world where small, consistent effort creates huge success. Get ready to practice your listening and your focus, because this is where the real progress happens. Clara lived in a small, quiet town, a place where not much ever seemed to change. She worked at a local bakery, which smelled wonderfully of fresh bread and cinnamon every morning. It was a nice job, and she enjoyed seeing the happy faces of her customers. But Clara had a dream that was much bigger than her little town. She wanted to work in international business, which meant she desperately needed to improve her English. Her current English level was okay. Maybe A2, but definitely not strong enough for a professional environment. She felt frustrated often. She would think, "Why is this so hard? My friend, Thomas, he seems to pick up new words without even trying. Maybe I just don't have the talent for languages." This thought, this comparison to Thomas, was a heavy weight on her shoulders, making her want to give up almost every evening. But one day, Clara saw a small sign in the bakery window advertising an online English course. The course wasn't special or expensive, but it promised one thing: a new 15-minute lesson every single day. Not a 4-hour class once a week, just 15 minutes daily. That little detail, the idea of a small, manageable commitment, somehow appealed to her more than the big, scary, all-day classes she usually avoided. Let's pause here for a quick listening check. I want you to tell me, in your head or out loud, what job did Clara have, and what was her dream? Think about those two things. She worked at the bakery, and she dreamed of working in international business. Good. Now, listen carefully to the next part, because it explains Clara's new plan. Clara decided to sign up. She told herself, 15 minutes, that's all. I can find 15 minutes, even on my busiest day. Her first lesson was simple. It was about introducing yourself and talking about your routine. The narrator had a very clear, easy-to-understand voice, just like the one you're listening to now. The lesson ended with a simple prompt. Describe your morning in 3 simple English sentences. Clara felt a little shy, but she wrote down 3 sentences in her notebook. I wake up at 6. I eat toast for breakfast. I walk to the bakery. They weren't perfect, but they were a start. The next day, she did another 15-minute lesson. This one was about asking for directions. The narrator gave an example. Excuse me, could you tell me the way to the park? Clara practiced saying this out loud several times, trying to match the rhythm and the pronunciation. It felt awkward at first, a bit silly, speaking English alone in her small kitchen. But she kept going. This is the first important lesson for you, the listener. When you feel awkward, You are learning. That feeling is progress. Don't stop. Now, let's talk about the difference between passive and active practice, which is what Clara was doing. When you listen to a podcast, a song, or a movie without trying to understand specific words or phrases, that is passive listening. It's good, but it won't make you fluent quickly. What Clara was doing, writing sentences, repeating phrases, answering the prompts, that is active practice. That's the golden key. Imagine you are trying to learn how to play the piano. Just listening to piano music is passive. Actually touching the keys and trying to play a simple scale is active. Which one will teach you to play? The active one, of course. For your English, the act of trying to produce a sentence, even if it's slow or wrong, is much more powerful than just understanding it when someone else says it. This consistent, active practice is exactly what helped Clara improve, even though Thomas, her friend, still seemed to know more vocabulary words than her. Let's meet Thomas properly. Thomas was a very bright, friendly person who genuinely loved languages. He could learn 20 new words in an hour if he put his mind to it. He was what people called a natural talent. He would study intensively for a weekend, memorize many complex phrases, and then not look at English again for 2 weeks. When he and Clara occasionally talked about their learning, he would often use a fancy new word he had just learned. Clara would feel a pang of jealousy and think, "I'm still struggling with simple prepositions like in and on, and he's using words like consequently and indispensable." But here is the thing. Thomas's learning was like a steep mountain peak, very high, but very narrow. Clara's learning, however, was like a slow, steady hill. It didn't look impressive immediately, but it covered much more ground, and more importantly, she never slipped back down. One day, after about 2 months of her 15-minute routine, the bakery manager, Mr. Petrov, needed help. Mr. Petrov was a kind but very busy man. He received a short email from an international flour supplier named Ms. Chen. The email was simple, but Mr. Petrov, whose English was very basic, struggled to understand one key sentence. He showed it to Clara. The sentence was, "Please confirm the shipping date is contingent upon receipt of the deposit." It was a slightly complex B2 level business sentence, but Clara had spent the previous week practicing simple conditional sentences. "If I have time, I will call you. If it rains, I will take an umbrella." Because of this simple, consistent practice, she was able to quickly understand the core meaning of the supplier's sentence. She knew that contingent upon meant depends on. She explained to Mr. Petrov, "It means the flour will only be sent after they receive the money." Mr. Petrov was so relieved and impressed. "Clara, your English is getting so much better." "Thank you," he said. Let's analyze that phrase, "is contingent upon." It's a very formal way to say depends on. For B1 level listening, you don't need to use the formal phrase, but you need to understand it. This is a common situation. Someone uses complex language, but you use simple, clear language to reply. That shows real fluency. Now, repeat after me, just to practice the sound. It depends on the money. Say it again. It depends on the money. Good. That small moment of success with Mr. Petrov fueled Clara's motivation more than any perfect score on a test ever could have. It proved that her consistent, small effort was working in the real world. Meanwhile, Thomas was busy with his other interests. He was a talented artist and spent a lot of time painting. His English study remained intensive but inconsistent. He would learn a lot, then forget a lot. He thought, I know all the grammar rules, I just need to use them. But using grammar rules fluently requires consistent repetition and integration. It needs that daily 15 minutes that Clara was doing. After 4 months, Clara's English was noticeably smoother. She wasn't fast, but she was clear and accurate. She had listened to, repeated, and used hundreds of short sentences. She started to do something new. She started watching short English videos on a topic she loved, documentaries about different countries. She didn't use subtitles at first. She would watch a 5-minute clip, pause it, and try to summarize what she heard in 1 or 2 sentences. This is a fantastic practice for you too. Watching a short segment and summarizing it forces your brain to understand the main idea, not just individual words. Try it next time you are watching something in English. For example, imagine you are watching a short clip about Paris, and the speaker says, "The Eiffel Tower was completed in 1889 and is visited by nearly 7 million people every year." Pause. Your summary might be, "The Eiffel Tower is very old, and many tourists visit it." That's perfect B1 level understanding and production. You simplified the information, but kept the meaning. This is what Clara did, and it helped her move from just understanding words to understanding concepts. This is the difference between learning a list and achieving real comprehension. Around this time, a new customer started visiting the bakery. His name was Elias, and he was an international student from a country where English was the main language of instruction at his university. Elias would often stay for a coffee and a croissant. He was friendly and patient. At first, Clara only said, "Good morning," or "That will be €3, please." But because of her 15-minute daily practice, she felt a small, growing confidence. One rainy afternoon, she took a deep breath and tried a more complex question. "How is the weather in your country this time of year?" she asked, her voice a little shaky. Elias smiled warmly. He replied, "It's usually quite sunny, but right now it's cold because of the winter season." Clara understood every word. She didn't have to translate it in her head. The words just made sense. This was a huge breakthrough for her. She responded, "I like the rain, but I hope the sun comes back soon." It was a simple exchange, but it lasted almost a minute, entirely in English. She was having a real conversation. This is the goal of all your listening practice, to have real, meaningful exchanges with others. Elias became a regular, and their small conversations became a routine, a natural extension of her 15-minute lessons. Let's think about that conversation for a moment. Elias said, "It's usually quite sunny, but right now it's cold because of the winter season." He used 2 important time expressions, usually, meaning normally, almost all the time, and right now, meaning at this exact moment. B1 English speakers use these expressions all the time to compare a general truth with a current situation. For your practice, I want you to tell me about 2 things: what you usually do on the weekend and what you are doing right now. Say it out loud. For example, "I usually visit my family on Saturday, but right now I am listening to Alex on English in Fluency." Go ahead, practice saying your own sentences. This is your active practice for this section. The crucial point here is that Elias never tested Clara. He just spoke naturally. He didn't use complicated, obscure words. He used common, everyday English, the kind of English you hear most often. This is why listening to simple, clear content daily is so effective. It trains your ear to the rhythm and the vocabulary that you will actually need in daily life, and, eventually, in business. Clara was building a solid foundation, brick by consistent brick. Now, let's fast forward another 2 months. Clara was now 7 months into her 15-minute-a-day challenge. She hadn't missed a single day. Her notebook was filled, not just with sentences, but with short paragraphs and even small stories she had written based on her prompts. Thomas, meanwhile, was starting to get serious about a job opportunity that required English. He was panicking a little. He knew the complex grammar, but when he tried to speak, his sentences were fragmented. He would start a sentence, forget the second half, and switch back to his native language. His learning had peaked and fallen many times, like a roller coaster. Clara's learning was like a steady train, moving forward slowly but surely, covering a great distance. One day, Thomas came into the bakery. He looked stressed. "Clara, I have this interview coming up for a marketing assistant role, and they want me to do a presentation about our local market to an international team. I know all the facts, but I feel terrified of speaking English for 15 minutes straight. My mind just goes blank." Clara listened patiently. She remembered her own initial fears, the feeling of her voice shaking. She thought for a moment and said, in clear, if slightly slow, English, "You know the words, Thomas, but you haven't given your mouth enough practice time. It's like a musician who knows the notes but never plays the instrument. You need to practice moving from one sentence to the next smoothly. You need routine." She then gave him a very practical piece of advice, something she had learned from her daily consistency. Start with a simple structure. Say, "Hello, my name is Thomas, and I will talk about our local market." Then use 3 points, A, B, and C. And finally, say, "Thank you for listening." Just practice those simple transitions many times. Thomas was impressed by her composure and the clarity of her English. He realized that while he had the talent to learn fast, he lacked the discipline to retain and use that knowledge fluently. He had the knowledge, but Clara had the skill, the smooth, effortless way of moving from one thought to the next, which only comes from daily, consistent practice. Let's quickly review the advice Clara gave Thomas, as it's great for your B1 level speaking practice too. It's all about clear structure. Repeat this structure after me, imagining you are giving a short talk. "Hello, my name is," and I will talk about. Now, the main points. First, I will discuss. Second, let's look at. Finally, I want to show you. And the closing. Thank you for listening. By practicing these simple framework sentences, you train your brain to have an automatic response, which frees up mental space to think about the content, the actual details of your message. This is how consistency creates fluency. The story of Clara and Thomas beautifully illustrates the core topic of today's lesson. Consistency beats talent. Thomas had the talent, the natural ability to learn quickly, but his lack of consistency meant his knowledge was fragile and difficult to use under pressure. Clara had the consistency, the non-negotiable 15 minutes every single day, and this turned her steady effort into real, usable fluency. She didn't have to think about the simple phrases, they just came out, leaving her brain free to concentrate on the bigger ideas. The next major step in Clara's journey happened completely by chance. One afternoon, Elias, the international student, came in looking a little worried. He needed to find a specific book for his university course, a very old and rare textbook on economics. He had a map of the city's large central library, but the building was huge and confusing. He had tried to ask for help, but the librarian he spoke to didn't understand the name of the book clearly. Or maybe Elias didn't say it right, and the interaction left him feeling frustrated. He told Clara, "I spent 30 minutes just trying to explain the title, and I still don't have the book." Clara looked at the map Elias showed her. It was definitely confusing, a true labyrinth of hallways and different sections. She thought for a moment, and then she offered, "I finish my shift in 5 minutes. If you like, I can come with you. My English is okay, and I know the library well. Maybe 2 people asking is better than 1. Elias was genuinely grateful. This was a completely new type of English challenge for Clara. Navigating a real-life problem, on the spot, with a native-level speaker by her side. This is B1 level English being used in a real, necessary, functional way. As they walked towards the library, Elias kept talking about his university course, the pressure of exams, and his plans to travel during the summer break. Clara had to listen and respond in real time. This is often the biggest jump for learners. It's one thing to answer a prompt in a textbook. It's another to keep up with a fast-moving conversation. Clara found herself relying heavily on the simple, clear sentences she had been practicing every day. When Elias asked, "Do you think I should visit the coast or the mountains for my trip?" Clara didn't try to use complicated vocabulary. She simply said, "The coast is beautiful, but the mountains are less crowded. It depends on whether you like swimming or hiking more." She used the simple conditional structure she had drilled earlier. "It depends on..." This phrase was now automatic, meaning she could focus all her mental energy on understanding Elias's question and giving a thoughtful answer. This is the ultimate power of consistency. It makes the basics automatic. Let's practice that phrase. It depends on. I will give you a situation, and you complete the sentence out loud. For example, if I say, "Should I wear a jacket?" You say, "It depends on the weather." Ready? "Should I buy a new phone?" You say, "It depends on..." Possible answer. "It depends on how much money you have." "Should I study more vocabulary?" You say, "It depends on..." Possible answer. "It depends on your current goal." "Should I eat dessert?" You say, "It depends on..." Possible answer. "It depends on if you are hungry." Fantastic. See how useful a small, simple structure is? Clara had internalized this. When they arrived at the library, they went straight to the information desk. The librarian this time was a woman named Ms. Silva, who spoke very precise, clear English, which was helpful. Elias started to explain the book again, trying to pronounce the difficult title. He started to stumble over the consonants. Clara noticed his frustration growing. After a moment, she stepped in politely. She didn't interrupt Elias, but waited for a small pause. She said to Ms. Silva very clearly, "Excuse me, I think the book is called The Hidden Principles of the Modern Economy. It's by Professor Davies, and Elias needs it for his university class." Clara's simple, slow, and accurate presentation of the information was exactly what was needed. She used simple conjunctions and common B1 vocabulary. "I think," called, by, "needs it for." Ms. Silva immediately understood and typed the title into her computer. She found the location quickly. "Ah, yes," Ms. Silva said. "It's on the second floor, in the social sciences section. Take the elevator to the second floor, turn right past the newspapers, and it's shelf number 24B. Clara made sure to listen and confirm the instructions, a key skill at the B1 level. She repeated the main points to Ms. Silva. "Second floor, right after the newspapers, shelf 24B. Is that correct?" Ms. Silva nodded. This simple act of repetition and confirmation, known as rephrasing, is vital for communication. It stops misunderstandings before they start. Let's practice that rephrasing skill. Imagine I tell you to do 3 things. Listen carefully, and then repeat the 3 instructions back to me, summarizing them in your own words. I say, go to the supermarket, buy milk, and remember to pick up the dry cleaning on your way home. Your rephrasing should sound like, so, I need to go to the supermarket for milk, and the dry cleaning is on the way home. You see, you don't need to use all my words, but you keep the important information. Elias was genuinely stunned. "Clara, thank you. I couldn't have done that. Your English is so clear. You understood all of Ms. Silva's instructions." Clara just smiled. She knew she wasn't as fast as Thomas, and she didn't know the fancy words, but in a real-life scenario, her consistent daily practice had allowed her to succeed where raw talent might have failed due to panic or poor fundamental sentence structure. This experience with Elias and the library confirmed for Clara that her approach was the right one. She realized that fluency isn't about knowing 10,000 words. It's about being able to use the 1,000 most common words correctly, quickly, and confidently. She was building a muscle memory for English. Every single 15-minute session was like a small exercise that strengthened that muscle. The biggest change in Clara after 8 months of consistency was her confidence. She started doing something Thomas couldn't do. She started thinking in English. When she was counting the bread in the bakery, the numbers popped into her head in English. When she planned her route home, the directions came in English. This is the natural result of daily, focused practice. Her brain was slowly but surely switching its default setting for common, everyday tasks. Now, let's incorporate another B1 grammar point that became easy for Clara because of her routine: present perfect versus simple past. This often confuses learners, but in daily conversation, it's very logical. Use simple past for a finished action at a specific time. I finished my shift an hour ago. Use present perfect for an action that started in the past and is still relevant now. I have been studying English for 8 months. The specific time isn't important. The continuity is. Clara used the present perfect with Elias when she said, "I have been practicing a lot. I want you to try this. Complete these 2 sentences out loud, thinking about the 2 different tenses. Simple past, a finished action. Yesterday, for example, yesterday, I watched a short video. Present perfect, a continuous, relevant action. I have never, for example, I have never visited that country. Practice those structures. They are the keys to smooth, B1 level storytelling and conversation. As the weeks turned into months, Thomas came back to Clara. He hadn't gotten the marketing assistant job, not because of his knowledge, but because of his delivery. He explained, "The presentation was fine, but during the Q&A, when they asked me an unexpected question, I couldn't form a quick answer. I knew the words, but the sentences wouldn't connect fast enough. he admitted to Clara, "You were right. I need routine. I need consistency." He finally asked her, "How do you keep going every day?" Clara's answer was simple, and it should be your answer too. She said, "I don't think about the entire mountain. I only think about the next 15 minutes. I don't try to be perfect. I just try to show up. Showing up is the real work." Thomas decided to try her method. He put his art supplies away for a few hours each week and committed to 15 minutes of English study every morning before his other work. He didn't try to learn 20 new words. He practiced using the words he already knew in simple, conversational sentences. The story continues with Clara finally having the courage to apply for the dream job she had once thought was impossible. The company was called Global Flavors, an international food trading business, and they needed an administrative assistant who could communicate fluently in English. The job application was simple, but the interview process was intense and entirely in English. Clara got the interview. The interview was with a manager named Mr. Harrison. Before the interview, Clara was nervous, but she reminded herself, "I have been practicing for almost a year. I have consistency. I have fluency." She used the present perfect in her mind to reinforce her confidence. The first question Mr. Harrison asked was a general B1 question. "Tell me about a challenge you have overcome and how you handled it." This is a common question, and a good B1 speaker should be ready to talk about the past. Clara told him about her English journey, about moving from feeling discouraged to committing to 15 minutes a day. She didn't use any high-level vocabulary, but her story was clear. Her sentences were well-formed, and her pronunciation was easy to understand. She spoke slowly and deliberately, but she didn't stop or hesitate nervously. She said, "For a long time, learning English felt impossible. My friend Thomas had much more natural talent than me, but I realized that I needed to change my method. I started to dedicate just 15 minutes every morning to active practice. I repeated phrases, I wrote simple sentences, and I never missed a day. This consistency was my challenge, and it was the key to overcoming my fear. Now, I can use English confidently every day, which is why I know I can handle this role." Mr. Harrison was clearly listening intently. He asked a follow-up question, requiring a little more advanced B1 thinking. "In this role, you will have to communicate with international suppliers, often by email. What is your process for ensuring your written messages are clear and polite?" This is a practical, professional question. Clara remembered her experience with Mr. Petrov and the flower supplier's email. She responded, "My process is based on simplicity and confirmation. First, I write the email using very clear, simple English. I avoid complex phrases. Second, I always read it out loud before sending it to check the tone. And third, I always include a line asking the supplier to confirm they have understood my key points. For example, I might write, 'Please confirm the delivery date is suitable for your team.' This prevents misunderstandings." Her answer was structured, logical, and demonstrated real-world communication skill. Let's quickly practice that last piece of advice. When you send an email or a message in English, always ask for confirmation. Repeat this phrase to internalize it. "Please confirm that." Say it again. "Please confirm that the time is correct." Good. This is B1 level practical communication. The interview was a success. Clara received the job offer a few days later. She had achieved her dream, not through a sudden burst of genius or talent, but through the cumulative power of small, consistent effort. The person who hired her, Mr. Harrison, told her, "Clara, you didn't have the fastest vocabulary, but you had the clearest communication. You showed us that you are reliable, focused, and fluent in practical English. That is exactly what we need." Clara's journey is the perfect illustration of why consistency beats talent. Thomas, with his talent, had a high, unstable tower of knowledge. Clara, with her consistency, built a wide, solid foundation of skill. When the pressure was on, the job interview, the library problem, Clara's foundation held strong, while Thomas's tower crumbled. The new job at Global Flavors was challenging but incredibly rewarding for Clara. Every day was an opportunity to use her hard-earned English. She wasn't dealing with simple bakery orders anymore. She was organizing international shipping schedules, drafting formal correspondence, and participating in team meetings with colleagues from all over the world. This new environment meant her B1 skills needed to level up, naturally progressing towards B2, but she still used the same fundamental, consistent approach. Instead of 15 minutes on basic sentences, she now spent 15 minutes every morning summarizing complex business reports she had to read or listening to a more challenging English news podcast. The tool remained the same: daily consistency, but the content became more challenging. One of the first challenges Clara faced was understanding different accents. In her team meetings, she had colleagues like Mr. Lee from South Korea, who spoke very fast, and Ms. Rodriguez from Spain, who sometimes swapped the sounds of B and V. This is a very common B1 listening problem. When you learn English from one source, one narrator, one clear accent, your ears get comfortable. Real life is full of variety. Clara quickly learned a key skill. She stopped translating in her head, and she started listening for the keywords and the intent of the sentence. For example, if Ms. Rodriguez was speaking fast and said, "The delivery will be delayed by about a week, but we have a backup plan involving air freight," Clara might not catch every single word, but she would certainly catch delayed, week, and air freight. These are the keywords. The intent is clear. There is a problem, but there is also a solution. This ability to focus on the main message rather than the detail is a sign of practical B1 to B2 listening maturity. Let's practice this keyword strategy. Listen to this sentence and identify the 3 most important keywords. Although the weather forecast predicted heavy rain this afternoon, the event will still take place outside. What are the 3 keywords? Weather forecast, rain, and event outside. Good. Even if you missed words like although or predicted, you still understand the main message. It might rain, but the event is still outside. This is a powerful listening technique that Clara used every day. Clara also found herself making occasional mistakes in her spoken English, especially under pressure. She would sometimes mix up verb tenses or use the wrong preposition. But she had an amazing new skill: the ability to self-correct smoothly. Self-correction is not failure. It's a mark of advanced fluency. It shows you know the rule and you can fix your mistake instantly. For instance, she might say in a meeting, "I sent the contract to the client last week." "Wait, I have sent it yesterday." "No, that's wrong. I sent it yesterday." She recognized the mistake immediately. She knew you must use simple past, "I sent," with a specific time like yesterday. By allowing herself to make small mistakes and immediately correct them, she was training her brain to get the grammar right the next time. She didn't panic, she just fixed it and moved on. You should practice this too. Say this sentence out loud and then correct it. Say, I go to the meeting last Tuesday. Now, correct it. I went to the meeting last Tuesday. Don't worry about the mistake. Celebrate the correction. That small act of correction is consistent practice in action. Meanwhile, Thomas had finally embraced consistency. He had taken Clara's advice to heart. He wasn't aiming for perfection, he was aiming for presence. He showed up for his 15 minutes of study every morning. He started using an app that forced him to summarize simple news articles in 3 English sentences. He wasn't a natural at being consistent, but he forced the habit. He focused on building a steady flow of English rather than a high peak of vocabulary. 6 months after the failed interview, Thomas applied for a similar job, this time as a local sales representative for a national company. The English requirement was lower, maybe solid B1, but his confidence was higher. During his interview, he didn't try to use complex, fancy language. He used clear, simple, concise English. He answered the questions slowly, but he was accurate. He got the job. He was honest with Clara when he told her, "My talent helped me start, Clara, but your consistency helped me finish." He realized that consistency wasn't a substitute for talent, but the necessary ingredient to turn talent into skill. Let's summarize the key learning points from Clara's journey now that we have seen her successfully transition into her dream role. These are the principles that will improve your English every single day. Embrace the 15-minute rule. A small, non-negotiable commitment is better than a huge, irregular one. Consistency builds muscle memory. Irregularity causes forgetting. Practice actively, not just passively. Don't just listen. Repeat, summarize, answer prompts, and speak the sentences out loud. Active practice turns knowledge into skill. Focus on the foundation. B1 level fluency is about using the most common structures: simple past, present perfect, basic conditionals, and conjunctions, correctly and automatically. This makes your communication clear and reliable. Listen for keywords and intent. Don't panic if you miss a word. Focus on the main words, nouns, verbs, adjectives, to understand the central message. Develop self-correction. When you make a mistake, acknowledge it, fix it, and move on smoothly. This is a sign of real-time language monitoring. Now, as the host of English in Fluency, I want to integrate one final powerful practice prompt directly into the narrative, something that embodies Clara's final level of B1 practical communication, moving towards B2. Imagine you are Clara, talking to Thomas about his new job. I will give you a situation, and you need to respond to Thomas out loud, using polite, encouraging, B1 level English. Thomas says to you, "I'm really nervous about making my first big sales call next week. I'm afraid I will forget everything I learned." Your response should use a mix of encouragement and a simple conditional sentence. If, then. Say your answer out loud now. Don't worry, Thomas. You have been practicing a lot. If you keep your sentences simple, then the customer will understand you easily. You are ready. Excellent. You used the present perfect. You have been practicing. A simple conditional, if, then, and clear encouragement. That is the sound of consistent practice turning into real confidence. Clara continued her daily ritual. Even after a year, She never stopped. Her 15 minutes was now just part of her daily life, like brushing her teeth or making a cup of coffee. The English that had once been a huge mountain was now just the air she breathed in her professional life. She learned that talent might give you a fast start, but only consistency provides the stamina to finish the race and keep running the next one. Clara's success was never about the quantity of her study material. It was always about the quality of her commitment. She never spent money on expensive new textbooks or flashy language apps that promised fluency in 30 days. Her progress came from simple, consistent interaction with the language. This interaction was deeply ingrained in her everyday life, turning mundane moments into opportunities for practice. For instance, when she was waiting for the bus, she wouldn't scroll through social media. Instead, she would look at the street signs and mentally construct a complete, grammatically correct English sentence about what she saw. The bus stop is currently closed for maintenance. I should be on time for my appointment. This habit, this constant low-level engagement, cemented her B1 understanding into rock-solid, automatic use. This is a practice I highly recommend for all of you listening. Use the small, empty moments of your day to create short English sentences about your immediate environment. It's effective, it costs nothing, and it's the definition of consistent engagement. A key part of the B1 level that Clara mastered through this consistency was the ability to express opinions and provide justifications. In her new job, she often had to present her recommendations to Mr. Harrison. It wasn't enough to just say, "I think we should use the new supplier." She had to justify it. The B1 skill here is using connecting words and phrases effectively. These words are like bridges between ideas, and they make your speech sound much more fluent and human. Clara would structure her justification using simple connectors. "I believe we should choose the new supplier because their prices are lower. In addition, their delivery time is much shorter. Therefore, this decision will save the company both time and money." Notice the use of because, in addition, and therefore. These are incredibly powerful B1 connectors. Let's practice these 3 connectors. I will give you a sentence, and you add one of the connectors and a reason to complete the thought. Say the whole completed sentence out loud. I love learning English. Use because. I love learning English because it helps me travel and meet new people. I should practice speaking more. Use in addition or therefore. I should practice speaking more. In addition, I need to focus on listening to different accents. Or, I practice speaking more. Therefore, my confidence is improving. These small phrases, practiced and used consistently, elevate your speech from a series of disconnected statements to a smooth, logical argument, which is what Clara needed to succeed in her job. Clara also stayed in touch with Thomas. Their friendship had shifted from a place of slight competition to a source of mutual support. Thomas, having successfully secured his new job, was now committed to his 15 minutes a day. He had learned his lesson. He was using his natural talent with consistency, and his progress was finally steady and accelerating. He was no longer trying to memorize 100 words at once. He was spending his 15 minutes practicing his pronunciation, recording himself, and then listening back to identify the 2 or 3 sounds he needed to fix. This brings us to a crucial listening skill that is often overlooked. Minimal pairs. These are words that sound very similar, but have different meanings because of one small change in sound. B1 students often struggle with these, especially when listening to fast speech. Consistent practice is the only way to train your ear to hear the difference instantly. Let's try a few. Listen carefully to the difference. Ship versus sheep. Live versus leave, felt versus filter. The difference is very small, but the meaning is huge. Clara's daily listening practice trained her ear to hear these small details, preventing communication errors at work. For your listening practice right now, repeat these minimal pairs, focusing on exaggerating the vowel sound difference. Ship, sheep, live, leave. The continuous prose of Clara's story is a mirror for your learning process. Just as her life had no headlines or bullet points, your journey to fluency is a steady, flowing narrative. There are no magical shortcuts, only the daily effort, the small, quiet choices you make. The choice to open the study material, the choice to repeat the sentence, the choice to speak out loud even when you feel silly. These are the choices that define your progress. Clara realized that her 15 minutes a day was not just a language lesson. It was a lesson in self-discipline. It taught her that achieving any big goal requires breaking it down into small, repeatable actions. The 10,000-word goal for this script, for example, is only achievable by writing one detailed, clear paragraph after another. Your fluency goal is only achievable by listening to one clear segment, practicing one clear sentence, and doing it again the next day. Think about the emotion behind her journey. At the beginning, she felt frustrated and discouraged. Her progress brought her satisfaction and confidence. The emotion changed because of the action, the consistency, not because of a sudden change in her natural ability. Your emotions about English will follow the same path if you commit to the daily practice. If you feel frustrated right now, that is normal. The solution is not to quit, but to reduce your commitment to something you can manage, 15 minutes, and commit to doing it every single day, without exception. As the host, Alex, I want to emphasize that the true core of B1 listening practice is not just to understand the words, but to understand the purpose and the tone of the speaker. When Mr. Harrison spoke, was he being critical or supportive? When Ms. Silva gave directions, was she confused or confident? Clara's consistent daily listening allowed her to pick up on these subtle cues, the slight rise in the voice for a question, the pause for emphasis. This is where fluency lives. It is the ability to read the speaker's intent. The story concludes with a simple, quiet moment. Clara is having lunch with Thomas. He's telling her about a major sales presentation he delivered entirely in English. He's excited, not because he was perfect, but because he was clear and understood. He said to Clara, "You know, the presentation went great. I only used simple words, but I used them with confidence. My consistency saved me." Clara smiled, thinking back to the small bakery, the sticky hands, and the huge, intimidating dream. She was living proof that the consistent, quiet effort always overcomes the spectacular, inconsistent flash of talent. She hadn't changed who she was. She was still a steady, disciplined person. But she had completely changed what she could do. The journey we have followed with Clara is the exact journey you are on right now with English in fluency. Every word you have listened to, every phrase you have repeated, and every prompt you have answered is a step on that path. Remember, consistency is not about having a perfect day of study. It is about having an imperfect day of study, and then doing it again the next day. It's about the habit, the ritual, the non-negotiable moment you set aside for your progress. You don't need to feel naturally gifted. You only need to feel consistently committed. Let's reinforce a final critical listening and speaking practice before we wrap up today. This is the ability to give advice and suggestions, a functional skill vital at the B1 level and something Clara used constantly. We use modal verbs for this, primarily should and could. I will give you a problem, and you give a piece of simple advice using should or could. Say your answer out loud. Problem. My friend is tired all the time and struggles to focus on their English study. Your advice. They should go to bed earlier. Or they could try studying for only 10 minutes instead of 1 hour. Choose your best advice and say it clearly. Problem. I want to improve my speaking, but I live alone and have no one to talk to. Your advice. You should record yourself speaking every day. Or you could find an online language exchange partner to practice with. Mastering these small, functional skills is the real reward of consistency. Clara's fluency wasn't built by memorizing abstract vocabulary. It was built by making hundreds of small, practical, simple choices about how to use the language every single day. She created an environment where failure was just a temporary sound correction, and success was the quiet, steady rhythm of daily progress. Think about this deeply. A massive goal, like fluency in English, can feel overwhelming. But if you see it as just a series of 15-minute windows, a series of simple listening practices, the pressure disappears. That's the beauty of consistency. It takes the emphasis off the big result and puts it on the small, manageable action you take right now. Your focus today was on B1 English listening practice, and by listening to this detailed story, following the plot, understanding the characters, and responding to the integrated practice prompts, you have absolutely improved your English today. This is the daily practice in action. This is consistency beating talent. I want to leave you with the absolute certainty that you have everything you need to become fluent. You don't need to be Thomas, the natural talent. You just need to be like Clara, the consistent worker. The difference between an advanced English speaker and a beginner is not ability. It is simply the number of consistent days the advanced speaker has practiced. Every single day counts. Now, for your specific, focused, and powerful call to action. I want you to make your own commitment, just like Clara did. Your commitment should be simple, small, and non-negotiable. Here is your task. Before you do anything else today, I want you to go back to the beginning of this audio, choose any 2 minutes of this script, and listen to it again. As you listen, I want you to write down or mentally list all the simple B1 connecting words you hear. Words like because, but, although, therefore, in addition, and however. That is your 15 minutes of focused, active, consistent practice for today. Do not aim for the entire script. Just aim for those 2 minutes. That small action is your victory for today. So, here is the final word from Alex at English in Fluency. Your English improves when you practice daily. Start today. Start small. Start consistently. And never, ever stop showing up for those 15 minutes. Thank you for listening. Thank you for practicing. And I will be here tomorrow with another opportunity for you to move one step closer to your fluency goal. Until then, keep practicing, keep improving, and keep winning with consistency.